Hello, everybody, and welcome to our town hall tonight. My name is Christine Colvin. I am the National Community Engagement Coordinator at Best Friends Animal Society, and I am thrilled to be your moderator tonight. We are thankful that you're here to talk about expanding your walls and to learn about how to maximize life-saving with a community-based foster program. Before we jump in and before I introduce our panelists, we're going to go over a few housekeeping items. So first, everyone's automatically muted when you join, so don't worry about accidentally unmuting yourself. If you have questions at any point, we have the Q&A box that's being monitored, and it's only visible on our end. We may pause a few times throughout the chat to answer Q&A if they're relevant to the topic at hand. We have some really great topics coming up. We also have scheduled time for additional questions at the end of the presentation. So keep an eye on the chat box for resources that are mentioned by our panelists. And we'll also have they'll have those resources that are in the chat as well as more posted to a document afterwards, sometime tomorrow. And the next town hall will be on March 24th. And don't forget about the Maddie's Fund Challenge. I'll mention more about that later on in the presentation. And with that, we are going to start introducing our panelists. So tonight we have, and I will let them introduce themselves further, but I'll give you their names. We have Amanda Graus, foster coordinator from Cincinnati Animal Care Humane Society, Carolyn Fitzgerald, the senior manager of Lifesaving programs, and Kelly Dewar, foster care specialist, Maddie's Fund. So Amanda, why don't you go first, then Carolyn, then Kelly.
Hi, yes, I'm Amanda. I'm the foster coordinator at Cincinnati Animal Care. We took over the Hamilton County Animal Shelter in August of 2020 as a new organization and kind of have built our foster program from the ground up. So I'm really excited to be here.
Hi, I'm Carolyn Fitzgerald. I'm the senior program manager for the East Coast Corridor program, which is over New York and Atlanta. We work establishing foster programs across the East Coast, and I work closely with Christine, so I'm thrilled to be part of the panel.
Hi, I'm Kelly Dewar. I'm foster care specialist for Maddie's Fund. I help with research and teach a lot of courses and work with a lot of foster coordinators across the country.
Awesome. I'm so thrilled to be here with all of you, and we're thrilled to be here with all of our new friends here on this Zoom. So hopefully this town hall is really informative for you, and we look forward to hearing and seeing your questions come in through the chat. So let's talk about foster programs. We all know how important foster programs are for our shelters, for our rescues, for our organizations. Fostering really is the way of the future, right? So we're just going to jump on into our Q&A, and let's start with the foundation of a foster program. Amanda, I want to come to you. Your foster program has gone from like 0 to 60 in a few short months. So tell us how you started and built your foster program and how you're making it a sustainable foster program.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the main thing when starting a foster program is definitely meeting as an organization first and setting those goals and those standards of what you want in a foster program at your shelter, at your rescue, to get the guidelines down before starting anything.
Looks like Amanda's connection got a little funky there. Maybe Carolyn, you want to pick up on that and jump in a bit?
Sure. I'll just talk really quickly about some of our satellite foster programs, which is a Best Friends internal program. Typically, our life-saving centers have been linked to a large city like New York or Atlanta. And what we learned during the pandemic is fostering can be done anywhere, at any time, in any place. And we've established these newer programs partnering with shelters across the East Coast that they're ready to have a foster program. They want to do the work, but they don't have the time or capacity, like you all know, to put a foster system in place. So we started doing that this year, but I see Amanda's back and we really want to hear more about her work. So I'll pick up on that a little later, just a teaser.
Yes, I'm so sorry about that. It cut out. But no, after setting the groundwork and setting goals for your organization, I think the next thing is definitely to get the main things figured out, like your foster manuals and your guidelines. As when people sign up for something, they want to know what they're signing up for and what's expected of them and what they can expect out of you as an organization as far as support and being there for them. Tons of resources can be found on Best Friends and Maddie's Fund, so you don't even have to start these from scratch. You can take manuals from other places and use them as yours and change the guidelines and everything like that. And then once you get all the groundwork done, honestly, it just goes to recruiting. Recruiting is so important, and we'll definitely talk more about that shortly.
For sure. And Amanda, you hit on a really great point. Best Friends, Animal Society, we're really big on sharing and really big on especially knowledge sharing. And we want to identify best practices by working with so many people and organizations. And yeah, if you find materials that we've created, please use them. We want you to use them. We want you and your program to thrive. So Amanda, that's exciting to hear that you based some of your foster programming from Best Friends resources. And I also think it's really important that you touched on managing expectations. That can be such a challenge that people can come in, whether it's the public or a volunteer or a foster, they can come in with this idea of what fostering might be or what volunteering might be. And then if you don't clarify at the beginning what your program is or what that experience is going to be, it can make it a little more challenging in the end. So I love that it sounds like you've done a really good job of managing and setting up those expectations so everyone's on the same page. Yeah, all right. I think we can all agree too that these programs don't thrive without community support, right? Like, yeah, we can do everything like Amanda, like you said, you can set up all of your documents, you can get your handbooks, you can get everything going and you're recruiting volunteers, but you need that community support, right? So Kelly, I would love to know what ways would you recommend to utilize community members and volunteers? What tactics have you found that are especially useful and helpful for engaging the community and bringing them on board as fosters or volunteers or supporters?
So when I first started out, this took me a little while to learn. I feel like there's a kind of a cultural thing in animal welfare where we feel like we have to do everything ourselves and we have to be this one person who can do everything. What it took me a while to learn was that the most successful foster programs, the ones that are, the highest volume, who have, satisfaction among their fosters, they are, the leaders are delegating. They have multiple people working under them as volunteers. And so that the person who is the foster coordinator is managing more than all of the data entry, that type of thing. So using volunteers to help manage your program, I think it's really essential. And especially for, your program in the long run so that you don't burn out. One of the largest foster programs in the country is Austin Pets Alive, and they do about 10,000 individual pets a year they put in foster. And their dog foster team has like 50 volunteers working under them. And they do all kinds of things from onboarding new fosters to helping with marketing to data entry to helping with events. And it really it helps those foster coordinators then have time to look at the data and be like, all right, well, we need more fosters who can take dogs who can't be in a home with other dogs. So we can work on that. So I think having volunteers and also having those volunteers be mentors for other fosters. I've seen a lot of really good foster program mentor programs, and it can really save the foster coordinator a whole lot of time. And it really helps with foster retention as well, because they're getting the support that they need and they don't have to feel like they're bothering you all the time to, ask certain questions. I think the more community you can build through mentors and people helping each other, the better.
Kelly, I think you brought a really great point. Carolyn, I think you're ready to jump in on this.
Yeah, I just wanted to add something that we've learned while we're launching foster programs in different areas is the peer-to-peer support is key. I think a lot of us got our start in animal welfare as a volunteer or a foster parent. And when that is what makes you find joy in life, right? We do this because we love it. We love the animals, but it's also a hobby in many ways. And learning from other fosters or other volunteers has less barriers and is less intimidating than bothering shelter staff, right? So I think that's really key, foster mentors. And by doing that, by linking peer-to-peer, you're creating that sense of community for them and giving them that support that you cannot find with your staff being stretched so thin. Christine runs a really great program within Best Friends that are virtual volunteers that do foster mentoring and can support across all of our life-saving centers in the United States. So I think that's really key to the success of many foster programs and expanding what you're already working on. It's not just the staff doing it, but training the volunteers or that foster parent who's always helping you out, for them to become a mentor or to treat them as if they were staff. And that's going to really stretch your resources further and relieve some of that work. And you'll get to the to-do list that you never get to.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely correct. And I think you touched on really great things. Also, thank you for plugging my program. Yeah, no, the National Foster Care Support Program that we have at Best Friends is, as Carolyn said, it's a remote virtual volunteerism program where we've placed the trust in the volunteers to access our systems, to do the record management, to do foster mentorship, to do medical care follow-up. So like I say, your foster pet, it goes to the veterinarian and you as foster coordinator, you're like, oh man, I got to track down these medical records. No, one of the remote volunteers is happy to call the veterinary office and upload those records for you. I recall a question coming in from the last town hall about foster programs in a small community. And what do you do if you're in a small community? What if you feel like you're within a wall? Like think outside your wall, think locally, but globally at the same time. This is where remote volunteers could come into play. There are people maybe just outside your city or just outside your county who would love to help you, who have that knowledge. You just got to give them a little bit of trust, a little bit of access. I'm not saying you have to give them access to Shelter Love or Chameleon or Volgistics or whatever system you use, but there are ways that they can assist. So maybe like just think outside that box, be a little bit innovative, maybe start a Trello board, maybe get an Excel going, find some way to have a mutually collaborative space that information could be shared and they can help you. I know burnout is such a thing. I remember when I was a volunteer coordinator at a county facility, I felt like I was on an island sometimes. I felt like it was all on me. Burnout was easy, right? Like that's, like you said, Kelly, it's really easy to feel like it's you or nothing, but it's not just you. You always, there is support available if you allow it. So allow that support is a big takeaway. I think we could all use, a big reminder we could all use sometimes. And yeah, a challenging part, the challenging part is, you find those really great fosters, right? You find the really great foster caregivers, they're really wonderful homes, they're really knowledgeable. And then sometimes they're like, all right, I adopted my pet, I adopted my foster, I'm done. And you're like, no, but we need you. And yeah, Kelly, you're right. That's a great way to keep them engaged, as like reel them back in as a mentor. And then maybe in 6 months, they might be like, yeah, I'm open again. But what other ways, Carolyn, can you, we're going to celebrate when a foster pet gets placed into a home, but then foster recruitment tips. What else can you add to that? Because like you said, you teased it a bit. We've got a really innovative program that you're leading, the satellites. And I know you've had to do a lot of like grassroots, like think outside the box recruitment strategies for this.
Yeah, so we are celebrating our 1-year anniversary of helping Polk County Animal Control have a foster program. So we partner with the Sheriff's Office. We're really thrilled with that work. And there are 2 other organizations we've been working with, Antony Humane Society in Waynesboro, Pennsylvania, and Catawba Animal Services in Hickory, North Carolina. And Best Friends does not have a brick and mortar location. The staff who oversees these programs are remote. I'm located in Philadelphia and I help with them. And we also have staff in Georgia and Florida. So we are not on the ground in those communities. Some of the things we've done for foster recruitment are and we are a larger organization, we look at what current volunteer population we have in that area. So think about your volunteers and sharing that you're going to be starting a foster program. Start small. Maybe there's one population of animals you want to work with. See, it's cats. Cats are my thing, so we have cats. And reach out to them and say, hey, we're going to start a foster program. We'd like for you to help us recruit, to help our local organization. How could you refer people to us? I think a lot of things are overlooked, simple things like tabling at grocery stores, which is a Best Friends founders technique. It does help. And also finding that key community member. There is someone who is so passionate about you starting a foster home, and they're going to be your biggest advocate. We have a wonderful volunteer in Florida, and I think she had every single friend and family member fostering for Best Friends. And she was able to go out. She was really, she still is very creative about thinking about adoption events in that community. And adoption events are another way. If you're at an adoption event and you're not recruiting for fosters and volunteers, you have a whole missed opportunity. I'm not a social media expert, but I also think if we're not asking for it on social media, what are you doing? It's a very easy thing. I think there's no too many times to ask for a foster program. I'm sure marketing does not agree with that assessment, but we'll leave that to them. But it's always good to ask, hey, let's get a quick flyer. Would you like to foster? And also make fostering registration as easy as possible. What do you really need to know? Things for local ordinances, addresses where the animal will live, what foster they're interested in fostering, and how can you educate them to be the best foster parent. Also, as far as recruitment, sometimes we think about long-term fosters all the time. Think about weekend fosters, day fosters. What is really great for bottle feeders are actually overnight fosters. If you do not have a nursery, which most shelters don't, and you don't have an established neonatal foster program, those animals, if you have someone who's on call every Monday night to take those bottle babies home, there's people who might be able to only foster for a day. You're missing out on recruiting them to become a foster when their schedule opens up, if you don't have that opportunity for them to do short-term fostering. So I think it really is like what Christine said in the beginning, it's about thinking outside of the box. There's not right and wrong answers to foster recruitment. Well, there probably is one wrong answer. Not doing it is the wrong answer. Try all the things, see what sticks, and what's worked 6 months ago or didn't work 6 months ago might work now. So don't feel scared to try. I think once the volunteers and fosters see that you're trying, they'll get behind you and help broadcast the foster program more.
I think that was a really good. I love that. No, it's always no unless you ask. Like we can assume like, oh no, they're not going to want to foster, or this group doesn't. Maybe at that point, at that time, but did you try again? And then also to your point, making every social media post a call to action. It's not just, oh, here's a cute picture, or here's a this. It's there's a why behind it. And I know, Amanda, I'm going to ask you, Amanda, because I know your social media is popping. I'm going to ask you some more details too. Kelly, I don't know if you have any social media.
Yes,
tips,
so
like you might.
So with Foster, we've analyzed the Facebook pages of organizations that have some of the largest foster programs in the country, and went through, and I've done this multiple times. I'll go through and look at a month full of their Facebook posts, and each time we do it, we like figure it out a little more. But these organizations are talking about foster in 33% of their posts on average. They're organizations that are posting sometimes 4 or 5 times a day. They're talking about foster more than once every single day. They're working in the posts just like they're talking about adoption. And what's interesting is you can't really talk about foster too much. I tried it once working with a rescue, and I was temporarily doing their marketing, and I was like, let's see how fast this baby can go. Maybe we'll get it up to 77%. And I thought people were going to complain. What happened was the foster team stopped speaking with me. They said, "You're trying to kill us." And I was like, "Oh, sorry." So
Like, good problem to have, I guess. But
I actually wrote down the statistic to share.
okay.
So thank you, Kelly.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, that's a good. Thank you for writing that down. I'm going to ask you about that tomorrow. Oh, darn! I had another question. You made me think of something, but now it's. Oh, where'd it go?
And I will say also, Amanda, a couple of months ago, I met with Amanda and the marketing staff at her shelter, and we talked about this. And I just did theirs in January, and it was at like 41%. And it's not surprising because you guys are recruiting fosters like crazy.
I remember. Caught the thought. I feel like we all have a tendency to do this. Is of course animal welfare. We know what fostering is, right? At least in our world. We know what it is. Obviously, you're gonna take the pet home temporarily, maybe adopt it. Do people know that? The people we're speaking to when we say foster, that's probably an intimidating word. Like how, and again, Amanda, I'm gonna keep asking you because I feel like, again, you must have some way of explaining it that resonates with people. Okay, I'm putting you on the spot. How do you explain it?
Yeah, so I think the short and easy way that I explain it is that you're opening up your home to an animal in need temporarily. So it's offering a temporary home to an animal in need to help them get to that next step.
Okay. So do you ever, I feel like some organizations or shelters might pitch it as like a test run. Like, you don't have to commit to this animal. You can kind of like test run it for a weekend, let us know.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's almost like a trial period, even if you're a long-term foster and you know you're going to keep fostering, even if you're a potential adopter. It's definitely a trial period, and you really test the waters to see, okay, can I handle this? Can I not? And so on. So it really is great for people to see what they can handle, and it's also helping us in the long run.
Get more notes on the animal, right? When they're in the home environment versus in the shelter environment. And two, I know sometimes organizations, like we think for best friends, like we focus on foster-based and community engagement for foster-based animal sheltering. But some organizations have a struggle with that. Some organizations can't get whoever it is on board with launching a foster program. So perhaps that might be a good way to present it to the decision makers of like, hey, realize that this could be like a foster to adopt situation. Maybe it's not, maybe they can find a way to package it in that kind of a scenario that it could be a little more palatable to those who are making the decision or who have the concerns. And Carolyn, I'd like for you, and Amanda, I want you to answer too, but I know you have a foster to adopt situation that is also, that could also illuminate a bit.
Yeah, with our satellite foster program in Polk County, we actually partner with the sheriff's office for animals who may not be spayed or neutered and or may be sick in the shelter and are not able to be adopted because of certain ordinances. They have to be spayed or neutered prior to the custody transfer. And I just spoke in so much coded terms. So the animals are not able to be adopted because of local law. So what we do is we actually put them into foster care and best friends animals. We get them well with their newly adopted home. They're fostered to adopt, so they go in with the commitment. If for whatever reason they want to continue fostering, we'll place the animal up for adoption and have it be available to the local community. But for the most part, the parents are adopting as soon as they can. And it's been really a successful program.
It's been really neat. Amanda, I'd love to hear what you were gonna, I think you were gonna also contribute to the.
About foster to adopt?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we do something a little differently at my shelter. We do kind of a version of foster adopts. We actually call it a pre-adoption. It's one of HAS's things that we've uncovered and tried here, and it works great. It's just we don't have the capability here to get animals in for spay and neuter surgery as quickly. So we'll allow them basically to go to a pre-adopt home, which is technically the person is fostering them as they're legally still our animal. And then we'll schedule the surgery. And then after the surgery is when the adoption becomes official, or up until the adoption, even they're welcome to return the animal if it's not a good fit and so on. So it's basically a foster situation still. And I just think that's an example of every single shelter rescue, you can always incorporate foster in some way, even if you don't want to do short-term fosters and things like that.
And I saw a question come in that I think is resonant to what we're discussing. And any of you who would like to pitch in, please. Speaking of building trust in foster programs, sometimes you have to be, not sometimes, safety is always first, right? And risk management is a concern. So what risk management structures do you build into your foster program? Yeah, figured you'd like to answer that, Carolyn.
So I think it's important before you start to speak to whoever is representing you for that risk management, whether it's your human resources or it's some operations person, and say, what are our standards? What is our insurance liability? What are our local ordinances? And have everything documented in SOP. What happens when a foster gets bit? Because we know what happens. What happens when a foster gets lost, right? We're not going to pretend that fosters don't get out. It happens. And I think also emphasizing the world is not perfect, right? Things happen, things go wrong. People are well-intentioned, and the best the best pet owner might have something happen at some time. Does that mean from that small percentage of risk, we shouldn't have the larger percentage of life saving not going on? And so the best way is to get ahead of it and to have everything organized and taught to your fosters. Do your fosters know what to do in an emergency? Do they know the staff members if the foster coordinators are on vacation? The solution is not to call them. There should be another representative who you can talk to. Is there an emergency phone number that needs to be fielded? Are there other technologies we could use to help with medical emergencies in the middle of the night? So I really think being thoughtful in the startup process is helpful to mitigate those issues, because when something does happen, because it will, and that's okay, you have a plan. Always having a plan and being prepared is better than, and will get you farther with type A personalities. So
and that communication plan is so important. And yeah, so like the foster mentors that are on my virtual volunteer team, like there's a communication plan. These people are calling and speaking to the fosters in the satellite programs, the foster caregivers, excuse me, but they have instructions. Like they know like to log the information, to log the communication that's happening in the shelter software so everyone can see, but there is a clear protocol of if X, Y, or Z happens, you are to do this. You are to call this person. Yeah.
And, just to kind of change the subject slightly along this is people ask questions about foster retention. So we talk about recruiting and then we talk about maintaining those fosters, right? An essential thing I think to retaining foster are clear processes. Feel safer when things are organized and they're more likely to refer, which is your recruitment, right? And maintain their relationship with you if you're giving them the resources to make good decisions, be independent, and when things go wrong, you support them because you have a policy and protocol in place. So I think sometimes the perception can be foster programs are the Wild West. These fosters just do what they want with these animals. But that is the perception. That's not the reality of a successful foster program. 10,000 animals in foster care a year. There's processes in place at that organization to have these fosters being independent, doing adoptions, and being resourceful. And fosters, when they feel supported, are more likely to continue fostering for the same organization.
Yes, I think it's Kelly, go for it.
Oh, sorry. So just two quick things about liability. One is to have a foster agreement that's airtight. Making sure if you have an organization, if you have a lawyer, have them look it over, make sure that the language is right. And every state is different as to what waivers mean. Some states they are great, and some states they really mean nothing. So talk to somebody about your agreement. The second thing is having a process for ensuring transparency with your fosters. So if you are putting a dog who has a bite history into a foster home, having an additional waiver, having, making sure that they get those physical notes on that pet so that they know exactly what about this pet. Because one of the things that I have seen is that organizations have this for adoption. They have this process for doing it with adoption, but with foster, sometimes, it just kind of slips through the cracks. But just to make sure that your fosters know everything about those pets.
I think that's so important. Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, Kelly. I do see a couple questions coming in, mostly about foster to adopts, but I think I can answer this. I know my answer, but someone was wondering about, okay, let's say you have a foster to adopt, and but when the foster doesn't return the animal, but they're supposed to not return the animal. So maybe that question, I'm not understanding exactly what they mean. I think what they were trying to get to was, what if this person ceases communication, or what if I don't know, maybe it's a, if you want to repeat your question in the chat, that might help me understand better. But yeah, there we go. And somebody else said, do you have the adopters take all of the foster training since the dog still legally belongs to your organization, even if they're a foster to adopt? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah,
As far as us for our pre-adopt, which is technically like a foster to adopt, we do not have them take our trainings. However, we will provide them with training materials on how to take care of a dog and everything like that, all of the same contact information in case they need something. They will have all of that, but they are not required to go through our foster manuals and foster trainings. We just are choosing to trust them as adopters and treat them more like adopters than the foster at that point in our organization.
Yeah, and I think that ties into, Amanda, your answer ties into Kelly's responses, like making sure your documents, everything's lined up. And when everyone, I think, had all the answers you just received from these panelists, married them all together, you got a really good, like, response of risk management, making sure you're like following up with your foster families on like needs of like the specific animal behaviors. This is really good. But okay, I do want to, we got down like the risk management rabbit hole there. So, okay, we tend to, as foster programs, it's easy to be like, yay, the pet's in foster care, woohoo, done. We're not done, right? We forget sometimes that that's just, we just started the journey. Like getting the animal placed into the foster home is the first leg of the journey, but we still want the animal to get adopted. So we need to remember that this animal that's in the foster home still needs marketing, still needs promotion, we still got to find that forever home. And I believe I wanted to ask, is that Kelly? Yeah, that's Kelly. How do you empower the fosters to, like, do you recommend toolkits? Do you recommend like sending me photos? Like, how can we help our foster caregivers find the forever homes for their foster pets?
There's a lot of things you can do. The first thing is to make it very clear from the outset that the fosters, you need their help with marketing. So on your foster landing page, when they're signing up, be like, and fosters help us, take pictures and tell us about the pets, so that they have that. Providing them with, information on marketing and trainings, anything that you have. Maddie's University has 2 courses. They are free on foster marketing, so the fosters can take those. We also have a foster caregiver marketing guide, so you're welcome to give that out. And having a process for getting that marketing material and making sure that you have that marketing material for all the foster pets. Pima Animal Care Center has their process is the fosters fill out a Google form questionnaire. The information comes to the foster staff. They do a little editing and then they post it on the pet's profile. They also track the pets in foster and they make sure that pets aren't falling through the cracks. They're not like a dog who went to foster, 6 months ago, who they don't have a picture of. And also if they do, helping to set those fosters up with other volunteers or photographers, so that if they are not comfortable with the marketing, or if they're just don't feel comfortable or just aren't, don't like it, that you can kind of help them, giving them the support that they need.
I'd like to add really on the staff side of things to not think of your foster animals as separate from your in-shelter animals, right? So if you're having length of stay meetings for how long have these animals been here, how can we promote them, you should merge those 2 lists. Sally and Kennel B is as important as Tammy in Christine's foster home. And if they each have or longer stay animals, you want to promote them for adoption. Is there something you can do that's creative? What promotions are you offering? How are they being marketed? Do you need to do a photo shoot? If you're recruiting volunteers and fosters at your adoption events, you might find your volunteer photo shoot, right? So thinking about them as not separate, right? Fostering expands our capacity to care for these animals in our communities. We are moved beyond our walls, and it's a very powerful program where they cannot become out of sight, out of mind. And that's something that shelter leadership and rescue leadership really needs to look at, to say, it's not just who's in front of me, it's the comprehensive program.
I absolutely agree. That's a really good point. And it's so easy to, that is out of mind is definitely true. And yeah, length of stay is still a consideration, because yeah, of course they're in a home. That's great that they're staying in a home, but it's still a temporary solution, right? Like that's definitely still something to keep an eye on. So moving past through to adoption, sometimes social media is a part of that. Amanda, I've been teasing this the whole time. Tell us about your social media. Because you've been using it in such a great way for marketing and adoption achievements, and you've really found a great, social media can be such a tightrope of urgency. If everything is urgent, nothing is urgent. You found a way to walk that tightrope of, while still bringing a weight to your messages, you're not flooding people with SOS red lights, messages. So tell us, share your social media, what you've learned and what we can do.
Yeah, so I think part of it is really thinking about each post individually and seeing and including why you are posting each thing. I'm very transparent, very vulnerable with our fosters. So occasionally I'd say the post that I put in our foster group, which is fosters who are already fostered with us, is basically explaining to them why we need it. Always putting that why. Maybe you're at -10 kennels and these dogs are going to be in pop-up crates. So you need 10 people to step up and say, I'm going to foster this dog today. It gives them a reason to do it. I just think it gives them more thought behind it. And then also it also helps to set goals. I've realized that we will put each day I'll come in here and I will, in our foster group, I will say the goal for us as a foster family, the goal as our foster family is we're going to get 15 dogs out together. If I'll say you can't foster a dog, can you support us in a way where you're going to help recruit a foster to get a dog in your place? And I think including fosters and helping recruit and using them as volunteers as well, if they're not able to foster in that moment, is really motivating to them. And it really makes everyone on the same team. And I think just getting your fosters involved more in that process of recruiting and everything has been our biggest deal, because word of mouth is just so important.
For sure, word of mouth. And Carolyn, you said it too. Word of mouth is one of the best ways, or biggest ways. And Kelly, I'm sure you've seen this too. Like, word of mouth is your biggest marketing tool for recruiting, for retention, for adopting a foster animal. Like, I feel like I'm taking notes here. I'm like, what are these main takeaways? Like, I'm noticing trends in our conversations. And I feel like the main trends we have in guidance in this conversation of how to expand your foster program, it's peer support. And peer support for yourself as staffs, for your volunteers, for your fosters, trusting your community. And yes, while we still need to make sure that we have liability risk, we have to work with our legal teams, whoever that might be, to cover bases, but to still having the trust in our community that they can care for animals with our help, with our guidance, but they can do it. Because shelters, rescues can't solve everything. That's impossible. And foundations are going to be the success, like having your plans laid out, having your expectations laid out, having your communication plans laid out. And I think another thing too is this foster program can sound like really overwhelming. And like, yeah, I keep seeing questions coming in like, well, what about if they bite? Or what about if what ifs, like all these what ifs of all these big kind of scary situations. Start with the easy lift. Start with this, find a win. Start with a facet of a foster program that you're like, okay, we can handle this, and work your way up to maybe the behavior cases or the animals that are more challenging, or set yourself up for a win is really what I want to put that out there. Yeah, no, and Amanda, I think your point to having transparency is so important too. We often, in animal welfare, we often want to only focus on the positive, the warm fuzzy, but that doesn't necessarily do us a favor, right? When it's like, when we do put out this call for action, sometimes people are like, but you said you were fine. What do you mean there's a problem? Yeah.
No, it can definitely change suddenly. And I think having a good middle ground where you do have those good days, but you also know when you should post that urgency post and ask for help, and also include the why you need help and explain, hey, this can change in a day.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so it's so fluid, right? Animals, some days we get, if you're an open intake facility, some days you get no animals coming in. Next day you get 3 boxes of kittens. And you're like, okay, here we go. speaking of kitten season, we all know this, it's breathing down our necks. It's going to be great. It's going to be a great kitten season. But okay, so far I'm loving our conversation. We do have some Q&As that I'm going to read through, and whoever wants to jump on it, please take it. But first, before we transition into Q&As, I do want to also plug, if you guys are friends on this town hall, if you've not heard yet, there is the Maddie's Fund We Foster Challenge. Registration opens in 4 short days at the end of the month on the 28th. Check the chat for details. Get in on this challenge. So let's segue to audience Q&A. Like I said, my Carolyn, Amanda, Kelly, all you fabulous people here, pitch in. You like the question? Pitch in. How do you create a foster program for a shelter that is opposed to sending dogs to foster? So I feel like we touched on this, but you might have a specific answer to give to this question.
I think it depends why they're opposed to it. Definitely talk to them, find out what their concerns are, and try and find a way to, to make their concerns, to make them feel better about it. You can use research, things like that. It's, possible. Some organizations, I've tried it actually myself around here in Virginia with a shelter. They were like, we don't want to do foster. So we started a rescue. And then we started pulling from them, but that was kind of the last thing, but we did everything we could to work with them. I do know some people in organizations who are a nonprofit, and I think that, Carolyn, the way you all are doing foster through shelters, but with your own, so I'll let you speak to that because you know way more about it.
So what Kelly's referencing are what we call our satellite foster programs, because they're not linked to one of our main centers. They just kind of pop up in a community that needs them. We work with a local organization, and Best Friends, the ones we have running now, are actually taking ownership of the animals. We do have another model where it would the ownership could be retained by the local organization, and we would put in all the work to start the fostering program, which includes setting up the SOPs, looking up local ordinances, looking at risk management, what are the laws around adoptions, and doing that communication plan to recruit and retain volunteers and make those roots in the community that the local organization can then take over through a transfer. We would transfer the program to them, and we would pop up at another community near you to launch a foster program. I do think what Kelly said is really important, is why are they not wanting to place dogs into foster? Are they wanting to place cats? And is that something that can then be successful? Do they want to do guinea pigs? I mean, there are some places, New York, a lot of guinea pigs in the city, actually, small mammals. Could that be something people would want to do and show proof of concept? Are there challenges with ordinances that make it very difficult to foster, right? So looking at those things, if it's that there is opposition through your leadership of the shelter because they don't believe in fostering, I think you do start light with look at the organizations. This is a similar organization to us. They have started their foster program. This is how successful it is. Connecting them with those shelters, because peer-to-peer, I believe it works in sheltering as well. Say, hey, you guys aren't doing anything wrong, but have you thought about the work this way? Can we help you work through your challenges? So I think starting with the why and then moving through a span. And the last place is what Kelly said, is start your own rescue and do it, which is not the easy to do, but I would definitely do that last.
You sure you don't want to just start like a sanctuary like the Best Friends people did 38 years? No? Okay. Yeah. I saw a question come in that I would like to answer. It was a question about foster pleas. Like, as we all know, like PLEAS, not pleas, but the pleas for foster placement, right? How most organizations will use Facebook or Instagram or phone calls, but some organizations will still use an email blast. I have feedback on that. I know Kelly has feedback on that. Any recommendations for programs that help create email plea templates? First of all, I would like to recommend not relying on emails, because emails are not checked very often. And usually when you have an urgent situation, you're not going to get that answer via email. If that email is what you have, rock it out. I will give you recommendations for, like, Canva is a really great resource for a quick plea that you could throw a photo in of the animal. Otherwise, if you can swing it, and a rapid messaging tool, like an SMS tool, 8x8 is a good one. Avocado is what we use internally at Best Friends. Tech people have their phones in their hand almost all the dang time. You're gonna get a faster response from a text message than you are an email. That's just been studied. It's how it is. But Kelly, do you have recommendations specifically for, like, email foster pleas, like how to have success with those?
So funny. We actually just did a foster plea survey like a month ago, and I was writing the report like an hour ago. So it'll come out in the next few weeks. But basically what we found is that the organizations with the largest foster programs are sending more pleas from more different, in more different methods more often. So it's not even as much really, I thought it would be a lot about, like exactly what's in the plea, but really it's kind of making sure that you're getting to them if you're doing email pleas, but also doing individual asks. And I think that was another one of the takeaways, is that that the organizations with the largest foster programs are doing a lot of individual type things. They're doing individual matchmaking. They are, texting individuals and being like, hey, we have this pet here, that would be great in your house. And so using different ones. One of the ones that I love right now is for email is MailChimp, because you can create templates and you can make things really easy by putting all of the buttons and things that make it very clear where they can find information. And you also can see the open rates, which I think is really, it's helpful in, I worked with Austin Pets Alive recently on creating a template for theirs. And we were able to see that their emails got opened significantly more on Saturday and Sunday, which I never would have expected. So.
I love MailChimp. The statistics behind it are so much fun. Like we, National Foster Care Support, we do monthly volunteer newsletters, and we were just celebrating this month. Shout out to my teammates on this call. When we get to see the click-through rate or the open rate, you're just like, okay, it helps you. And also that would help you, the person who did ask the email question, utilizing a program like MailChimp to see your metrics. Because I wish I could remember, our CEO, Julie Castle, said the most amazing thing the other day about measuring things and affecting change, and I cannot recall, but it was magical. So pretend I said something magical right now about measurability and effectability. I think that's what it was. You have to measure it to make changes to it, right? So having metrics associated to things like your emails will help you understand what's working, what's not working, and where to go fits.
I had to take some more notes from Kelly because I heard more pleas, more ways, more often, which I think
more
do fostering are like
more.
Too many emails, too many pleas. So this is a learning experience that I'm going to take back to my team, and I might have to pick your brain later about this.
We're just gonna let's leave avocado in. It's okay.
Yeah, I'll put my Calendly in the chat if anybody wants. I'm happy to set up a Zoom call.
Awesome. Yeah, if anybody missed that, Kelly just said she will set up a Zoom call with you to go over this. So please don't miss that opportunity. Kelly is a wealth of knowledge. Schedule some time. Save that link, bookmark it. Let me see what other chats. Oh, we got some more chats. Okay, that is a bit of a tough. Sorry, okay, I got distracted by a Canva versus Trello conversation. So two of my favorite programs right now. So I'm sorry, my foster win is whining in the background. So I apologize for that. We call them foster, we don't call it foster. That's enough, thank you. So the question is, advise on apps like Canva versus Trello, concerned about accessibility for less tech savvy. Totally get what you're saying. Make it simple for your users and build a simple template. People can learn things. That's the amazing thing. And Trello is pretty user-friendly, as is Canva, as long as you make it simple. Build in your simple Canva templates with a little drag and drop photo frame. Same with Trello, just show them examples. Maybe make a sample Trello of hey, here's how we're going to use this. It's doable. I would be or heck, feel free to email me. I'll put my email in the chat. You're welcome to email me and we can help you figure out how to make your make this easier for your volunteers or for your community members to understand, because it's doable, it's possible. Like National Foster Care Support Program, our life is Trello. So, and I make almost everything I use Canva all the dang time. I'm always like, Canva, this is solution. People are like, are you getting paid? But I'm not getting paid by Canva. I just love Canva. I think it's so versatile that it's an incredible tool that is free. So is Trello. Like the base level usage of these programs are free, which means amazing use scenarios. So I'm gonna go to, there was a question about foster to adopt. So foster to adopt gurus here. How do you communicate to someone the difference between somebody who only wants to foster to adopt and people who know the goal of fostering is goodbye? We have a difficult time telling people there's a difference and why fostering for goodbye is important to the shelter and only fostering to adopt doesn't help as much. I have comments, but I would like to hear panelist comments.
I think we have to look at how people should use foster to adopt and how people should use fostering, right? And I'm using should loosely, actually. How Amanda described it as a pre-adopt or used to increase life-saving when there are barriers that we cannot overcome to adoption. So what they're doing is an excellent example is those animals are not legally able to be adopted because they're not spayed or neutered, or they may not, even if it's not an ordinance, we're not going to want to put out unaltered animals transferring their ownership, right? So that promoting that different because you're then increasing life saving by letting those animals go home sooner rather than letting them have their stay time in the shelter. Really talking about the different types of fostering. Any person who comes to foster and they fall in love with the animal, to me, that's a win. That's one less animal who doesn't have a home. And the best place for an animal is a home. That means we have to be creative with our foster recruitment and retention, right? Maybe they have adopted, but once the animal settles, do they want to come back and foster? We should still be asking them. They have a spare bathroom for some kittens. Like, we have to get creative. And if they're not able to foster, can they come and volunteer at your shelter? So I think we have to look at that, or we're not losing them anymore, right? We're then engaging them in a different type of relationship and being strategic with that. And, you know, fostering, like I said earlier, and some the women have touched upon, it should not be a one size fits all. We should look to expand after you're your program going. How can you make fostering available to everyone to then increase your goals, right? To make things easier, to reduce the number of animals in your building, reduces staff stress, more time to do things that you wanted to do on that to-do list in the corner, right? So it's reframing the mind. I think you should explain, you know, our goal of our foster program is that you will help adopt them out. And these are the ways you can do that. And here's the marketing plan. Here's an easy Canva. I know nothing about technology, so Christina is the partner in crime for that. A Canva template, and you just pop that puppy picture right there, and there's a cute phrase, you click on it, it pounces, right? And here's a link, and you can put it up on your Instagram or your Twitter, and Shazam, adoption ad, right? How can we make it as easy so that they want, and it becomes a great experience for them to find that home? And we talk to them about, you've done such great work. Let's find your new foster for you. So I think it's just changing the mindset around that as it not being a negative thing.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, I agree. I feel like that was my first reaction. I was like, but adoption is great too. Fostering to adopt is great too. It's not necessarily less great than a foster home, because you actually also know if it is a traditional foster, if that foster caregiver is going to return, and if that foster home is going to be open again. And so then that's also your great moment of retention, of offering an opportunity. Either way, if they do foster once, or if they foster and adopt, then if they can become a foster mentor, they are continuing to help the cycle. They are continuing to feed into that and to help grow your program and grow the community's confidence in fostering and volunteering. Speaking of fostering and volunteering, somebody asked, do fosters fall under the volunteer program as well as your shelters? So I think they're asking, no, I think it's like, do you have a volunteer? Is it a separate volunteer and foster program? Is it one person overseeing everything? I know where I was at, I oversaw everything. As volunteer coordinator previously, I oversaw the traditional, like, helping on the ground, in the shelter, in the kennels, as well as the foster program. Amanda, run with that.
Yeah, so at Cincinnati Animal Care, we do have separate. We have a volunteer coordinator and me, the foster coordinator. We do a lot together, though. We only send a few email blasts, but our weekly email blasts and our report cards do go out together. And we see a lot of volunteers that volunteer in the shelter and stuff like that want to become fosters. And we have a lot of our fosters that, like we said, adopt an animal, might not have a space anymore, that become some of our best volunteers. So it is separate, but we do work a lot together at the same time.
Thank you. Yes.
At Best Friends, we treat our foster parents as volunteers because they're giving us their time, their resources, all of that to support an animal in their care. So while they may live with different staff members, the spirit of the program is the same. I had worked at a prior shelter and they were kept very separate. And what I really like about how Best Friends does things, and what I would recommend, even if you have separate staff, is treating them the same. So when you talk about volunteer engagement, you want to talk about foster parent engagement, right? When you talk about volunteer recruitment, it's talking about foster recruitment. There's so much crossover. Also training, town halls, we host meetings with all of our volunteers. We invite our foster parents to them so that they can also have that cross-pollination of ideas. And creating that sense of community. Maybe you only have a couple foster parents and you have a ton of volunteers, never enough volunteers, but let's imagine here, you want to merge those populations together to create that peer-to-peer support we referenced before.
Yes, I love that. And the cross-pollination part, it's so true. Like I just experienced that as well. In my virtual team, we're like, hey guys, we need more foster mentors because kitten season's coming up, we need more. And like our volunteers are sorted into 5 roles. We got record management, medical care, adoption ambassadors, foster mentors. So we put the plea out there in our newsletter yesterday. And our newsletter went out like 3 in the afternoon or ish. Okay. A couple hours later, we get an application in from one of our medical care saying, I want to be foster mentor. It's like, yes, it's the cross-pollination, merging of lists. You never know unless you ask, repeating the message.
And this works really well, especially for some of your hardest to find fosters for pets, because who is the most attached to those dogs that are losing it in the kennel? It's your volunteers, and your volunteers can walk them in the kennel. So God knows they can, if they're stressed out, they're acting, wild in the shelter. A lot of the time they act totally normal in a house. And so the volunteers in Fairfax during the behavior foster program, while I was there, 13 out of the 14 high-level behavior fosters started out as volunteers. So it definitely, treating them together. And in some organizations, if they do have volunteers who are high level who can't take a pet, they sometimes rent a hotel room and do an overnight with a dog who needs to get out, that kind of thing.
I love that. Such an innovative solution. And what if you could find, if you live in a town where there's a lot of business travel, what if you could get a program of short-term stays? Like these business people might love to have a furry companion, connect with a hotel. Hi, perfect. Get away. Okay, we have like 1 minute left. This has been fun. I can't believe we're already at the top of the hour. We should do the same. We should do this again. Real quick, somebody was asking. So the 5 roles in my program, foster mentor, record management, adoption ambassador, medical care and support, and creative communications. Those are the 5 roles. These are the virtual volunteers who assist. Originally, the program was designed to specifically assist foster programs across Best Friends Lifesaving Network, but now we've expanded it to just general operations. So it's not only fostering, we will do anything that we can virtually do to assist the centers. But those are the 5 roles. Holy cow, there's other questions. Zena, I'm going to recommend you email Kelly. Zena was asking a question about the emails and too many emails or too many social media posts. So I'm just saying connect. And cats. Yes, cats. Everyone needs foster homes. Oh, and Miranda, real quick. Okay, Miranda's saying for retention, do you suggest anything special for thanking your volunteers? Always thank your volunteers. Do you handwrite thank you cards or anything? Do you do anything special for them? I would say do whatever you can. Amanda, I think you got something to add.
Yeah, we actually just started, we've been really busy, but just started handwritten thank you cards like 6 months ago. And I think almost every foster, after you write them a handwritten thank you card, will come back. It's
That is the sweetest. I love it.
Highly recommends. Yep.
Yep, thank you cards are actually not old fashioned. They're a big hit all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, I sent them out too. We do. And they're simple, they're low budget. Also, if you want to, that you could involve volunteers to help you get the thank you cards written. That is another opportunity, another engagement opportunity. World is endless. Okay, so actually we're at the top of the hour. So moderators, I think our panel, yeah, that's it. That's how did we finish that already? So everybody, panelists, Kelly, Carolyn, Amanda, thank you all for being here. Friends who follow us on this, it was a pleasure being your moderator. Thank you for meeting us. I put my email in the chat. You're welcome to email me anytime. Kelly, I know she put her email in there. And yeah, thank you for your time tonight and good luck with your foster programs and have a wonderful day.